Welcome to Horror Happens TV here on Jefferson Highlights. Thank you for being a part this month. Wanted to say how much we appreciate and thank everyone out there for checking out the Horror Happens film showcase that we recently had here on Valentine's Day. A big thank you to everyone who came out, the filmmakers, and all those involved with it. To find out more about this event and more great events with Horror Happens Productions, go to horrorhappens.com. You can also check out broadcasts on Cablevision the first Thursday and Sunday of the month at 6:30 p.m. On this week's show, we go ahead and we bring in not only one of the most unique women in horror across the great United States of ours, but someone who has broken the barrier when it comes to dying on camera. On this episode of Horror Happens TV, we speak with Heather Drew later on in the program. Also on the program, we will speak with David San, our critic, talking about Asian film, Asian horror, and Asian animation. He will be covering the Japanese animation, one of the most popular, one of the most legendary, Ghost in the Shell, right after we come back from the break. As always, when you come to Horror Happens TV, you expect the best. And we bring you, on a monthly basis, the best in guests with horror and sci-fi. Filmmakers, actors, actresses, producers, writers, and now, dying for the camera. As always, find us on Twitter at HorrorHappensRS and at GhostJLK, as well as HorrorHappens.com. Horror Happens TV can go ahead and be found on YouTube also, as well as at HorrorHappens.com. We'll be back in just a minute with David San talking about Ghost in the Shell here on Horror Happens TV on Jefferson Highlights. And don't forget, again, you can check us out the first Thursday and Sunday at 6:30 p.m. as part of the block with the Indie Lounge with a wonderful and talented host, Mandy Del Rio, as she takes you around the world of indie writing, filmmaking, and music with some of the most diverse and best guests around. Find us again on YouTube at HorrorHappens.com, and we'll be right back here on Horror Happens TV on Jefferson Highlights. Thank you for being a part of it. Back here on Horror Happens TV on Jefferson Highlights. A quick reminder before we have our critic David San come up to talk about Ghost in the Shell, check out the Horror Happens radio show on Homegrown Radio every Tuesday, 4 p.m., live and uncensored. Listen live if you dare. And a big thank you to everyone out there checking us out on Jefferson Highlights as well as YouTube. A quick thank you to Diabolique Magazine for their continued support. Here in the program, we have Heather Drew coming up from Dying for the Camera. But first, we welcome back our critic, David San, who talks, David, about the Asian film, horror, animation, and we're focusing on Ghost in the Shell. How you been?
I've been good. I've been catching up on the live-action version of actually Ghost in the Shell because a lot of people are a little bit hesitant about the fact that Scarlett Johansson is going to play Major Kusanagi.
Well, you know what? Before you get into the review, Scarlett Johansson is a very interesting actress because she's really kind of has a diverse film background. Recently, Under the Skin, Lucy. So she kind of falls into that mix. Talk a little bit first about Ghost in the Shell as an animation from Japan, and then the impact of her being a part of this live-action production.
Well, Ghost in the Shell is considered one of the top anime in the world.
Wow.
Right behind Cowboy Bebop, Akira, and Armitage, and a lot of others.
That's a diverse background.
But Ghost in the Shell, what it has to deal with is people's perception of what is humanity, what is the mind separate from the body. It's a lot of like philosophical questions.
Wow.
And actually, the original creator of the manga based a lot of the Ghost in the Shell on the actual philosophical question about Ghost in the Machine.
Well, if I may ask, though, you look at the film Lucy, which just came out last year in theaters, and that really kind of has roots in Ghost in the Shell, especially as the film progresses on to 100% understanding of the mind.
It's basically an exploration of,
Wow.
What really constitutes a person as a human. Because in Ghost in the Shell, a lot of people are both man and machine. They undergo this surgery where they actually get a computer brain, and they can actually just hook basically cables into their necks and actually go onto the net.
Man, wow. And this sounds like something from Giant Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves back in the late 90s. I mean,
yeah.
that film was very popular when it came to the aspect of plugging in and information and data and such. And it's, I guess in our society, it's kind of moving towards that, where computers really are taking over. AI is becoming an important part and integrating with human beings a lot.
Well, one of the things in Ghost in the Shell is tanks called Tachikomas. And the Tachikomas are basically tanks with AI, and each one has their own personality. And to basically share information between each other, they basically link up too.
Wow. It's astonishing to know that technology. And how many years ago did Ghost in the Shell come out in Japan?
It was at least in the 80s.
Wow, so the 80s. So you're looking at, what, almost 3 decades, more than 3 decades, and it's kind of like a foretelling of what's happening now in our societies.
Well, essentially, you look at stuff like Star Trek, where, technology like tricorders,
Absolutely.
That like
Communicating.
yeah, visors where people who are blind could now see.
Yeah.
It's basically technology is catching up.
Wow.
And actually, one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is, "There will come a time when technology will completely take over."
Man, this aspect, Ghost in the Shell, the Japanese animation, the comic that's coming out of there. Real quick, as we finish up, talk a little bit about that and why you recommend it so much.
I recommend Ghost in the Shell just because it's an experience. It's a thought-provoking, philosophical anime. It's one of those top 10, as I say, but it's also a trip, and it doesn't have just one viewpoint. Because in the first movie, you're basically thinking, oh, they're going after this bad guy called the Puppet Master.
Yeah.
But he's not really a bad guy. He's just showing, what's wrong with technology.
Well, it sounds like it's a very detailed, very much a commentary on the future. And David, thank you so much for coming in and talking a little bit about it.
Thank you, but I also recommend Boogie Pop Phantom and Serial Experiment Lane, in case you want a little bit more of a head trip.
Absolutely. Thank you, David, very much. And we'll be right back here on Horror Happens TV, right on Jefferson Highlights with Heather Drew from Dying for the Camera. Be back. Back on Horror Happens TV here on Jefferson Highlights with me, your host, JK. Thank you again for tuning in. Find us at horrorhappens.com and also check out womeninhorrormonth.com as we celebrate every February talking about some of the greatest women in all the dark corners of horror. Our guest for the show this week is the lovely Heather Drew. Dying for the camera, one of the most unique perspectives and personalities within the horror genre, and really a unique talent. Heather, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, you know what? The pleasure and honor is ours here at Jefferson Highlights, Horror Happens TV. Let's jump right into it. Dying for the camera. It sounds just like a title, something anyone can do, but it's not true whatsoever. You've studied so much within the science of it, the business aspect of it, the performance aspect. Where did the idea come from, and how did you develop it into this business, this brand?
It's been a long time coming. I actually developed it with a woman called Pamela Kramer.
Yeah.
She's a casting director, and she taught a horror class for the past 4 years, and it's now called Dying for the Camera, and I teach within that. I coach the death scenes within that. And it started because she used to give us exercises on how to die, just fun, be a zombie, play this, do this. And I went on set one time, and someone died horrendously. I'm talking...
Over dramatic.
Not only that, but she got an arrow, I believe it was in the stomach, and she kept on going, ah. And I was like, I can't take it. I can't. And after about 20 minutes, I suggested, hey, the proper way, if you don't mind, would be for her to lurch forward, and it would contract around the wound. And I told Pamela Kramer, and she's like, well, that's something that we can develop. Why don't you study forensic pathology and learn how to actually die and translate that to film and give people the tools and techniques to learn how to die better on camera.
Wow. Do more people die correctly or incorrectly in film?
Are we talking indie or are we talking...
I guess the budget and the time really does go into it. But seriously, I mean, you know, dying for the camera, there's so many ways to die. I mean, they make TV shows about it. 1,000 Ways to Die, I believe, was the most recent one. How do you go ahead and even start to figure with the aspect of dying? And how do you figure with the person to die? How do you get to that process and understanding?
Lots of research. Again, the forensic pathology, there's so many intricacies within the body, and it's a process of dying. So I have to look at the individual, look at the wound, look at what's inflicting it, and base the death off of that. Say if you're going to have a car accident and it's going to cut you in half. Is your spleen going to, it's a lymphatic organ, is it going to bleed out? If it is ruptured, what's going to happen? And I have to know through that individual and through who's cast how to wrap that and envelop that into a memorable death scene that they can have, and they could broadcast and have everyone leave the theater and go, dude, that was awesome. That was so cool. Someone might forget your lines. They're never going to forget your death scene.
It's
ever.
so dramatic. It's powerful. I mean, and that's really something where words really don't have any impact for the most part on it, unless it's words that are kind of catching the other character. But the emoting, the facial expressions, the body language, I mean, really you have to be a master at doing something like that. It's a craft in itself.
Absolutely.
And Pamela Kramer helps you so much with this. I mean, how much of a mentor has she been to you in not only as an actress, which you were just in the In Fear of series with Scott W. Perry, one of the episodes, more to come with it, but also as a death coach. How much she impact?
Oh my gosh, she's been tremendous. I started off just taking her horror class, and she guided me as an actress, and then with the death scene, she is a acting coach. So we have Dying for the Camera, we have a 4-week class, and I coach the death scenes, and what she does is coaches the actors. So she is the one who will say, you'll have an entire scene, she'll teach the killer how to emote and everything like that.
Yeah.
Then I'll do the death and be like, okay, they're going to focus on the eyes at this point, things like that. But she's 100% the acting coach. I owe everything to her, all her students. We've had students on White Collar, Gotham, things like that. And I'll give them the exercises, and they'll be able to do the physical, but she's the acting coach. I give that all to her. Pamela Kramer is a savior to me in a sense.
How much does it, for you, impact the fact, not only knowing the science aspect of it, understanding the way the body moves and the body reacts, but also being an actress yourself, going, and in this case, usually for a filmmaker, being in front and behind the camera. For you, being in front and behind the camera as an actress and a death coach, how much does it impact?
The death?
Absolutely. The understanding the death and seeing how people will move just as if you were doing it.
Being an actress myself, I can figure out the questions that a lot of people will have beforehand. meaning if someone were to get hit by something, I'd be like, I don't know how I would react to that. So then I'll look at the information and I'll be able to relay that better. I think being an actress myself and maneuvering and knowing how I would portray it, I can better understand and better relay the translation of how this would happen to that actor.
Wow.
Just using tools, things that I've picked up, and hopefully being able to teach them in the same manner, in a way that I would be receptive to.
What are some of the deaths that you've seen that really inspire you when it comes to it? And it could be indie or major or TV, because you talked a lot about TV,
Yes.
Gotham and White Collar, and they're really big shows, Fox, USA. What's some of the ones that really inspire you when you say, that's right, that's exactly what I want to see from the students I work with on that level?
I've always used The Death in Colors as a great, wonderful example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Powerful film.
Powerful film, and the actor did his research. It would have been a scene I would have loved to have coached. He gets shot in the lungs, and his lungs are filling up with blood, and you see with every exaltation, he spews a little bit of blood. His motor skills start to go. There's certain aspects that he was able to read upon and study upon and bring that into the death scene and make it real. And that's one thing that I like to stress upon, is I love to do real deaths and realistic deaths.
Wow. Realistic, like, well, you said about particular wounds, knives, shotguns, that kind of stuff, real, or more like illness and people dying, people withering away?
Particularly what I mean by it is, let's say you were to get shot.
Okay. You don't have to do that, though.
No.
Okay.
In certain
Just ain't
films,
sure.
if you're in Sons of Anarchy, or if you're like just a day player, you get shot, you're down, you're dead. I'd prefer the death that would be like a main character, where you're shot, and then I want the realistic timing.
Okay.
I want it to take a while. I prefer to be more relatable to the actual time frame that it would take. If you're going to be stabbed, you could walk 8 miles and still live. In a movie, a lot of times you'll get stabbed and you'll die, which I do as well. I do the quick deaths.
Okay.
But I would prefer to see you struggle. I would prefer for this body system to start to fail, and then that one, and to have it take a minute or two. With the constraints of film, it can't be 5 minutes, but it can be
Exactly.
a minute.
Timing plays a huge role in something like that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And then
Wow.
the editor and director will overall have the final cut of it, but I like to give the good morsels.
Yeah. Well, real quick, in Fear of, the series with Scott W. Perry, I mean, that there is really kind of focusing on particular fears. It's just finished its second season. It's up on Vimeo, I believe.
Yes.
If I'm correct, and I'm sure season 3 is right around the bend. But what was your part with this? Because I know that Scott talks very highly of you as a professional, as a performer, and also dying for the camera. How was that for you with that series?
Well, first of all, thanks, Scott. And I loved being a part of that series. I was able to act in 3 episodes.
Wow.
One episode with Debbie Rochon, which was awesome. I've always wanted to work with her. And having different phobias and being able to feel that fear and different fears
Yeah.
was fantastic for me, and to discover new phobias was great. I also worked as a production assistant. Death coach, I gave some tidbits, but I wasn't. Me and
Each
Scott are
step
like,
at a time.
What?
Each step at a time. One step.
That was 2 years ago that I believe we started that.
Wow.
I think, yeah, it's been a long time that we've been working on that. But we have, there's 18 episodes, something like that. There's a lot of episodes. The next one they'll be releasing Buried Alive, I believe March 13th.
March 13th.
So the next one.
Friday the 13th. Second one in 2 months. That's really freaky and scary as all hell. You look at it now as an actress. You have both paths in front of you, Heather Drew, death coach and actress. Which one have you found to be more of the challenge for you?
I guess death coaching, only because it's a new foray into the business world.
Okay. Very unique one.
A very unique world, it's a niche. But I also find that they intertwine quite a lot.
Interesting.
And getting on set, whether it's death coach or actress, and I meet different people and I'm able to network, I find that they work very well together. So I almost consider them one, even though they're not. because I feel like I'm working on my craft either way.
This area for you, how has it been in the tri-state area? This is a very tight-knit horror community. You have Monster Mania, which is going to be coming up March 13th through the 15th. So that's right around the bend, monstermania.net. But you also have Chiller Theater in this area.
Yes.
You have New York Horror Show. I know you've been a part of the Macabre Fair Film Festival, where I was lucky enough to be a part of one of your demonstrations for Dying for the Camera.
Love them.
Yes, they are tremendous. How's this community been for you?
So supportive. Absolutely supportive. And the greatest thing is you'll go to these conventions, you'll meet new people, you'll become friends with them, and you'll be able to share such a wonderful culture. The horror community is a devout community and one that wants to rise people up. They want to see people succeed. It's not a offer myself business, which I love. And I love that people are not only in the business, but they are fans as well.
Yeah.
If you're in the horror genre, if you're working in the sci-fi horror, it's because you love it. It's not for the
Acticore?
money. It's
Yeah.
because you love it.
Definitely not for the money. We can attest to that
No.
when it comes to it. And we talk about it also not only with this community, but also Women in Horror Month. Women Horror Month, womenhorrormonth.com. It's one of those growing movements. 6 years now. Hand Erotica, who unfortunately couldn't be here because of weather. You pick up the mantle here in the Horror Happens radio show. We had you on for the conversation. You're a big part of it. You're a strong female presence, very empowering to the community. Dying for the Camera. You do. What is it for you? What does Women in Horror mean to you, and how much have you seen the growth of women in this field?
I think Women Horror is a celebration. A celebration of we respect you, we see what you're doing, we love what you're working towards, and we appreciate it. And I think it's only going to grow. Being 1 month, sometimes it's like, I love that we have our own month, but at the same time, sometimes I'm like, well, why don't we get the spotlight that everyone else does all the time?
That's the way it
But
should be.
that's the way it should be. But there are people like Patricia Chica that is on the brink. She is going to blow up. The
She is.
Saska sisters.
Saska sisters.
I fangirled. I love them.
With that, make sure you check out some of the great horror films this year in 2014. Recommendations including Contracted, Proxy, Housebound, and more. These films are some of the beacons of independent horror hope that you, the fans out there, should check out and support. Check out these films and see the growth of great labels like Magnet and IFC Midnight, ones where you can find films like The Battery, which will be a part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase. I am JK. Make sure and check out the Horror Happens Film Showcase at horrorhappens.com. And thank you so much for watching here on Jefferson Highlights. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com, the Horror Happens radio show channel on YouTube, as well as find us at horrorhappens.com for information on the Horror Happens Film Showcase, Horror Happens TV, and the Horror Happens radio show, heard weekly, Tuesdays, 4 p.m. East Coast time on Homegrown Radio. A big thank you to Diabolique Magazine, a partner in Horror Happens Productions.
there. I can't do that.
We talked about this for years.
No, you talked about this for years.
What's with the cameras?
We're shooting a documentary.
Are you gonna be showing good people or bad?
Is there a difference?
What are you doing? You know why we're taping this. It doesn't make any sense.
But it does. This means something to it. John, what's on these tapes?
Yeah, John. What's on the tapes?
Emergency.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Somebody killed my dad!
911, what's your emergency?
Hey, I need you guys to get out here. I need the police out here right now.
What's going on, sir?
My neighbors have been murdered.
What's the
911.